All right, guys, I think you can hear me, but maybe you can't see me just yet. Let's try it again. Tell you what, welcome to the midweek. If you can hear me, then welcome to the midweek. It is time for us to begin. Before we head into a really, really important conversation that's going to be so helpful for all of us, I need to call something out just to get it off my chest. This is just for me. So think back now. Do you guys remember the 2014 Olympics? First of all, do you guys remember the Olympics? Oh, man. But in 2014, the Olympics were in Sochi. And do you remember the big story of those Olympics? It was Bob Costas' eye. Do you remember that? Here, take a look at him and see if you can jog your memory. He had pink eye and it was just terrible. Well, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because just as of today, I was afraid that I was going to be in danger of having my own Bob Costas moment. Now, it's gotten a little bit better, but a few days ago, I was like, man, actually like 5 or 6 days ago, I thought I'm coming down with a sty in my eye. And then 5 or 6 days later, it was still there. It got worse. Thanks, 2020. So here's the thing. I got to a point where I was like, I'm blaming the murder hornets. You know, I might as well. In fact, if anybody can help find these guys and give them my number and tell them to give me a call, I think they need to get the eggs removed from my eyelid. All right, anyway, one of these days I'll get back to having 20/20 vision here in 2020. See what I did there? To be serious, we had a really great conversation this weekend where we wrapped up this series, The Heartbeat of Us, and we looked at the last of our 5 core values here at The Crossing. And Greg talked to us about this last core value, and I want you to remember how he said it. So take a look.
God is timeless. God is eternal. God existed before there was time. He is not dependent on time. He is not dependent on seeing how circumstances roll out before he figures out his plan. I believe God is not overwhelmed or thrown by anything that is coming our way. God is eternal. In fact, what we see in Isaiah 43 is that God refers to himself as existing before there were even days. In Genesis 1, he is the one who created day and night. In Psalm 90, he is everlasting to everlasting. By the time you get to Isaiah 44, the Lord of hosts, the King of Israel says, I am the first and I am the last. Apart from me, there is no God. You get to Revelation and Jesus is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. What am I saying to you? Let's start here. Our God is timeless. He is eternal and none of this intimidates him. And he is sovereign. Our God is in control. So no matter what headline, no matter what personal heartache right now is rattling you, God reigns. I believe that. And if you don't, then we're going to get lost in all of this. And by the way, this leads us to our 5th and final core value, if you want to call them that, these common themes that we've been talking about. And it turns out it's been a very timely series. God has led us through this. But here it is. If God is eternal, if God is truly in charge, if God is sovereign, then we are a people of hope. And you know what that means? That means God, here's number 5. God is not finished with us or this world.
So that's it. That's our last core value. God is not finished with us or this world.
Yeah, and this was a good week to remember that.
Yeah, right?
Right? A good year to remember that.
Oh my
God
gosh.
is not finished.
We're not to the end of the story yet.
No.
There's still more.
No, not to the end. That's
it's
right.
encouraging. So
it is encouraging.
I just think this whole series has been so helpful as we've reviewed kind of these values that we have said as a church. These are going to define us. These are going to be things that are going to drive everything that we do. All the way back to the idea that worship encompasses all of life. The scripture is the foundational way that God speaks to us. It's been encouraging.
It's been so good. This weekend, one of the things that I went away with is be people of peace. Be a person who brings peace.
Yeah.
And I just love that because so often we wait for peace to come to us or we expect other people to create the peace. But it made me think of Deborah in the Old Testament, the prophetess, Deborah. I love this line. Years ago, I read this line about her and thought, oh, I want to be like that. It said that she was a woman who settled disputes. So can you imagine being the person who shows up and peace comes in the room? I've got people like that in my life.
Do you?
When they come in the room, the chaos kind of settles.
So like I think of myself as one of those people in your life who just
that's good for you.
Totally helps me. You're glad that I think
so
that
glad
way?
you think of yourself that way.
Maybe I bring a little chaos into your life. But
you bring a lot of joy into
thank
my
you.
life.
See, thanks. But that's Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." This is somebody that we are called to be as followers of Jesus, to be brokers of shalom. Greg has said.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And not depending on the circumstances. You know, I mean, we can bring people of peace when it doesn't feel peaceful.
And that, I think, leads us into so much of what we're going to be talking about throughout the course of this midweek. You know? That's it.
Right.
What does it look like to have peace, to have hope in the midst of really difficult
Right,
circumstances?
right.
But can I make a hard left turn?
Well, can I talk about your shirt?
Well, yeah, you can make the turn for me. Do you like my shirt?
I like your shirt.
I don't know if you guys can see. Do you see the logo there, the crossing?
And I have the logo on my shirt. So go ahead.
It's awesome. Well, so our bookstore is now selling, I call it crossing swag. I think that's the wrong term. We're supposed to call it merch or something like that.
Yeah.
But we've got shirts and, well, actually, we've got a hat and we've got a couple of
I've already gotten my
mugs.
son-in-law one of these.
Yeah, the hat's awesome.
If you see Lloyd Nix anywhere, he's going to be carrying this one.
Okay.
He loves this one.
That thing's substantial.
And it's heavy.
It's not, yeah, it's really, really nice.
Awesome. So we're excited. It's fun.
My 15-year-old is wearing this hat. If you can get a 15-year-old to wear a hat like this, then you made it right.
There you
right?
go.
So anyway, we just wanted you guys to know that this stuff was available in the bookstore. You can order it through the bookstore online, and we're just really excited about it. It's
really
a chance
fun.
to kind of just, show off that you're a part of this church family.
That's right, because you're not in the bookstore quite as often as you used to be, so you wouldn't
That's right.
see it.
Pretty cool stuff.
Awesome.
But told you that was going to be a hard left turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're just celebrating the fact that there are ways for us as a church community to keep saying we're in this together, and,
Right.
and we're gonna continue to encourage each other. And that's been even on our social media platforms. We've started another little mini campaign to encourage each other, where we're looking at the fruit of the Spirit out of Galatians 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a little video each day where we kind of cover one of those.
You
fruits.
covered one. What'd you cover?
I did. I started with love, so that was the very first one, and we just talked about how Paul says it's the chief virtue. You know, the greatest of these is love. It's the most excellent way, and it's how we are called to be with one another, is to love one another.
So good.
Which one did you do?
I did peace.
Okay.
I did peace.
Oh yeah, you were just yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
And I did peace. And so when I grew up in Sunday school, because we're both one of those that grew up.
We're both church kids who
we're
went to
in the
Sunday school,
church,
which some of you
felt
may not even
board.
know what that is,
Yeah.
but that's,
So, and they would talk about
Did you say felt board?
yeah.
That's the best.
Do you remember those?
I do.
And they would talk about the fruits of the Spirit. In fact, we memorized them. Love,
Okay.
joy, peace, patience, kindness, all those ones. Can't name them anymore.
You memorized it back then. It's been a minute.
It's been 5 minutes. But anyway, I took away from that. I don't know that anyone told me this, or maybe they did, but I took away from that. Memorize this list and be like that.
So these are things to
Make
aspire
yourself like
to
that.
strive, yeah.
Right. Be more patient. Be kinder. Be more.
But that's not what the verse is about. Yeah.
Now I understand that it's like when the Holy Spirit is in you, that's what's going to flow out of you.
You just bear that fruit.
And I see it now, that list, more as a way to take my own pulse. So if I find myself being less patient, less kind, it means I need to get back into the presence of God a little more often and see that fruit flow from my life. And that's when you are showing up and bringing peace into a situation.
Yeah, that's great. So whenever you feel yourself going, man, I can think of times where I've been like, I'm not as joyful these days as I'd like to be, or I'm not being patient with people in my life or whatever, then I can pray for those things. God, give me joy. God, give me patience. But I can also pray, Spirit, I need more of you in my life. I realize that I need you. And
instead
when
of beating yourself up, and trying to do it yourself.
That's great.
So that's why I'm glad we're covering those on social media this week.
Very cool. And one of the ways that we're going to be bearing fruit as a community is we've got our food drive, Give Food, is this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Because used to, we'd bring bags and bags and bags of food into our lobbies.
Oh my gosh.
So we're doing it different
Yeah.
this year because we still want to, the need is even greater than before,
Right.
so we still want to step into that.
So we're doing it like we've done some of our experiences through this COVID season before, where from 9 to noon, on November 14th, which is this Saturday morning, you can go to 3 different sites and you can drop off all of your donations. The Crossing at Grants Trail, the Crossing at Mid Rivers, and Circle of Concern, which is one of our partners that we love doing this with. You can actually go to their location and drop it off there.
And I want to get this right. If you
Yeah.
can't get out, or even if you don't feel safe getting
whatever
out,
reason.
that's okay too. You can go to our website, calendar, and then give food. And there's a list that you can find on Amazon, and it'll go
Right.
straight to Oasis International and Helping Hand-Me-Downs.
That's awesome. So if you go to that link on our calendar, so there's the list,
The
the
link
shopping
is right
list
there on the
but
calendar.
then there's
yeah.
also the link.
Very
Yeah.
easy to do.
Yeah,
so.
that's awesome. So we'd love for you to join us with that, and let's just bless our community, and let's celebrate the fact that that God's on the move, and we're to care for the city that He's planted
That's
us
right.
in. So this is one of the ways we'll do that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we've got a question that we want you guys to wrestle with today, and you can put this in the comments. We'd love to hear from you, or you can go to the app, the Crossing app on your phone, and answer this question, and we'll kind of share some of what you share with us here before we're done. But the question we'd love for you to answer is, let's say I want to get it right, when did things seem hopeless, and yet God came through? Okay?
Yeah.
Can you think of a story in your life where things seemed hopeless and yet God came through? In a sentence or two, share that with us in the comments or in the app.
And let me say this, if you can't think of a time like that, or if this is all new to you, read those.
Yeah.
Read
it'll be
those as
encouraging.
people post them, because that people have really lived this.
Yeah.
And so let that encourage you.
And it comes out of the conversation we had this weekend, right? Where we're looking at Jeremiah 29, where these people are in exile and things seemed hopeless, and yet God says, "Listen, I'm not done. I know the plans I have."
Yeah.
And then also one of the things Greg talked about is these overarching narratives that we experience in our lives, where we write a story based on our circumstances, and the truth is there's an overarching narrative that's even bigger than all of those. It's the story that God is writing, and so that's kind of where we're going to go now in this conversation. And for starters, we'd love to talk to somebody from one of our small groups. So we've got a group called College at the Crossing, and it's a bunch of college students that have gotten together, and they actually had an amazing conversation about this weekend. In fact, I have been so excited about what God's doing with College at the Crossing. I've been wanting to have somebody on from this group since we started the midweek.
Yep.
And that's true, right?
Yep,
We talked about
yep.
it. So I'm so excited that joining us today is our friend Franny Holler, who's here to talk to us about College at the Crossing.
Hi, Franny.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here, Franny.
Well, of course. Thanks for having me.
It was great to have you. So tell us a little bit about College at the Crossing. This is a group, and you've been in it. Well, wait, before we talk about the group, tell us about you. Where are you going to school? What are you up to right now?
So I am a college student at Missouri State in Springfield.
Go Bears.
Yes,
Yeah,
Bear up.
That's right.
But I'm in St. Louis this semester doing my student teaching at Parkway Central High School.
Which go Colts. That's my alma mater, Parkway Central. So I was so excited when I heard that you're
When you
student
said it
teaching
earlier,
there.
it was way louder
It got a
than
little
that
weird
when
in
you
here.
first found out.
It got a little weird. That's awesome. So you've been here back in St. Louis really since...
Pretty much since the lockdown happened originally
Yeah.
in March.
And so, so you kind of pulled out of your college community and trying to find community back home.
Yes.
And that's where College at the Crossing comes in. So
Yeah.
tell us about this group.
So originally over the summer, we started by meeting at a park up in St. Charles, socially distanced with our masks on, having to kind of yell across the park to be able to hear each other. But this past weekend was the first weekend that we were able to meet in the church building again, which was amazing, just to be back in the building with all of the people who I'd started to build that community with.
Yeah, that's awesome. But so you were telling me that while you guys were meeting online and in parks and that kind of thing, you were still finding other strategic ways to get together and just share time together.
Yeah, we recently went to Six Flags, the Fright Fest, one Saturday, just to go ride roller coasters as a bunch of college kids. But it was awesome because we were standing in line for like an hour, hour and a half for these rides, and we got the chance to just, talk with
I
each
would
other.
not do that anymore.
And we got to really have, conversations about what was going on in our lives and about the services and the book that we had been reading together and just all this sorts of stuff that it was amazing to really get to hang out as friends and also have that deep connection that we could talk about.
That's so awesome.
But then was the roller coaster worth waiting?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
There you go. Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. So that was super fun, but then there were also some meaningful ways that you guys have been building relationships and just kind of caring for each other through this season. So there was one story you told me about with your friend. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so a couple different times we did kind of like prayer partners, where during the week we would be partnered with someone that maybe we didn't know very well, but that was at that group maybe on the Saturday. And I got paired with this girl named Kelsey, and we didn't really know each other, but throughout the week we could be texting and just saying, how can I pray for you today? What's your day? like looking like today? How can I help you get through this day? Especially during the times when we're not really seeing people our age. And now I'd say she's probably one of my best friends in the group.
Wow.
So.
That's so awesome.
Wow.
And
So
you
finding
guys-
community in a time when we're all
Yes.
kind of separate, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And so then that leads you guys to having deeper and richer conversations, and you eventually got to a place to where this last weekend, you guys were unpacking this message where Greg was talking about that overarching narrative, right?
Yes.
And so tell us about that conversation. How did that even start?
So it started with, we were kind of sharing how our weeks had been going, what kind of prayer requests we needed, some yay gods that were happening in our lives. And that led into this, maybe someone was struggling with their homework that week. But really they were feeling like, I'm not enough. I'm failing this. How can I be better? What can I do to improve? Like those kinds of narratives that are false, that we're telling ourselves.
Yeah.
And we were able to speak truth into each other, saying, like you are enough. Like see yourself how God sees you. Like you're an amazing person and you can do anything through him.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So this overarching narrative that is different than how God sees you, did you notice Tim's eye?
I didn't originally when I walked in, no.
Did you?
It's
Because
gotten
he's
better.
telling
It's
himself.
better now.
He's telling himself this narrative
yeah.
that that's all you see when you look at him.
It was way, way worse this morning, I promise. And so I wrote that intro because I was like, I need to call out the
Oh,
fact
wait, I
that
have
I
a
look
picture.
hideous.
Show the picture, Austin. So yesterday, this is what Tim looked like yesterday.
No, please. That
And
just
can we do a
makes-
side by side with the
It's not necessary. That's, yeah, it's pretty close. It's pretty
So
close.
that's the story you're telling yourself.
Can you make that go away now, please, please, please,
Get away.
please? Yeah, it was really bad. It's gotten better.
So you can affirm to Tim that his
It does not look
overarching
that bad.
narrative
Thank you.
I couldn't
is
even
false.
tell.
Thank
we
you.
believe in
Yeah.
you, Tim.
God says that my eye is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Can I get back to
Yeah,
the
go
conversation?
ahead,
Thank you.
yeah.
So, Franny, I wrote down a couple of the other kind of false narratives that you guys walked through. One of them was, I have to make everybody happy. It's my job to make everybody happy.
And that was one that a lot of people said.
Really?
And it could have come from, a lot of different places, especially being alone for so long during lockdown, during the pandemic, not really seeing people around you and thinking, I don't want other people to feel lonely. I don't want other people to feel sad like how I've been feeling, or stressed or anxious or hopeless. So I'm going to try and make everybody happy. But it's not true. Like it's not your job to make other people happy. But you can help guide them towards God, who can fulfill them.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so great.
So good.
I love that you guys are having these conversations, and you're just an example of how important it is to form community when you're going through difficult seasons. Like, Angela, this is why you're the groups pastor.
Yeah.
This is why groups exist at the Crossing.
That's right. Yeah. And groups have been such a lifeline to people these last 7-8 months because of what you talked about with you and Kelsey. You know, how you can connect and stay in touch even when it's not. I mean, we've got people joining groups from out of state and finding connection, which is so encouraging.
That's great.
Yeah.
So real quickly, for anybody who's watching who's going, I think I'm in college, I didn't know this group existed, I'd love to get plugged in. Franny, is there a way that they can get connected to you guys?
Yeah, so on the website, on the Crossing's website, if you go to communities and then College at the Crossing, there's information on there that you can register to join the group.
Oh,
or
that's awesome.
if you just come to the Saturday night service at Chesterfield, we meet in the loft afterwards.
Perfect. And we should mention that Ben Horstman is the
Oh,
guy
yeah,
who kind of
yeah.
oversees.
Give him a little credit.
We'll throw his name out there because we love Ben,
Yeah.
and he's doing a great job with you guys, which is so awesome. So, so we'd love for you to join that group if that works for you. And Franny, I want to thank you so much for just being a part of this conversation.
Yeah. It's great to have you here.
Yeah. But again, these groups are so important because when people start to say we're going to do life together, not just in a way that where we're hanging out and having fun, but we're going to be intentional. We're going to open up God's word. We're going to challenge each other with difficult conversations, and we're even going to pray for each other, like Franny and Kelsey did. What can happen over time is that not only are really strong relationships formed, but some really profound conversations can come out of that. So, in our Never Settle curriculum that we put together for groups, there are a bunch of these conversations that take place. We watched one together a couple weeks ago, and we want to watch another one now. So this is where a few people sat around to have a conversation, and some really helpful stuff came out of it. So take a look and see what they said.
We're the angry Muppets in the balcony. What about when we're the ones, for a variety of reasons, that we just fall into that spectator role of, just like you said, we're just lobbing the critique bombs and the judgment bombs out there. How do you push against that?
For me, it's writing better headlines. So I'll read a headline and it'll wreck me for the day. And it's a reality and it's a truth that I need to pay attention to. But there are also lots of really great things happening in my life. So writing my own headlines to define my day. So husband and wife can't stop laughing during dinner. Woman steps outside and sees sunshine for the first time in 3 days. You know.
So it's everything that the world has said in recent months. We need more good news. That's what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's real, and it's in your
my good
backyard.
news.
It's your
Yeah.
good news. Okay, that's very interesting.
Wow. So what are the headlines that we're writing in our story?
I love that idea
It's-
of writing your own headlines.
Yeah, because there's plenty of the negative ones.
Yeah, and you can watch those all night long,
Right.
all day long on
Yeah.
TV.
And this is what I just think is kind of my takeaway from this whole conversation is that if we're not careful, all of those negative things can become the story that we're writing.
Right.
And right now, it's really easy to do. It's, my kids, we're doing school from home. I'm stuck working from home. A lot of us are still furloughed from a job. There's this kind of national stuff that's going on. And it's really easy to go, all of that adds up to this story of my life stinks,
And you can miss the beautiful moments,
which happen every day.
which happen all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to look for them and be aware of them.
So when we start to pay attention to that, we get to rewrite our story.
Yeah.
So, Angela, with all of that in mind, as we were talking about this and trying to figure out what the conversation was that we wanted to have together, what we immediately thought of was your story.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually interview you
quite a
here for
story.
just a second. Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Yeah.
And you've told it here before. In fact, a couple years ago when you were pretty new on staff,
Yeah.
you and I got a chance to tell your story from stage on the
We
weekend.
did, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's been a little while.
Yeah,
we did.
It has. And so
Yeah.
some of you
Yeah.
have heard this, and some of you, this will be new. But I wanted you to just go back and tell us again. This is, and I know we're just getting a snapshot. There's
Yeah,
so much to your
Yeah.
story. But the headlines in your life several years ago seemed pretty bleak.
Yeah, very bleak. Our fourth baby was born with a rare genetic syndrome that caused him to be born with multiple deformities. And what we would find out later is intellectual and emotional and all of those delays.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And you found out that was going to be your situation, that he was going to be born. You found that out while you were still pregnant.
Yeah, well, we found out he had a cleft lip. But when
Got
he
it.
was born, it's when the tornado hit. It just hit all at once. And they didn't know if he was going to live through the night. So, we went through that whole night knowing that he was going to live. But then what followed, the next night, my husband decided to go home and be with the 3 older children because their world had just been rocked too.
Right.
All of our plans for the future were put into question. We were going to go back on the mission field, and now we have a sick baby.
Yeah.
So everything seemed unsure and hopeless is a really good word. Hopeless also because I am not the kind of person I would have chosen to be his mother.
I wanted you to say that, like you were like, this, God, you got it wrong.
I
You
would
picked
have
the
given
wrong
him to a
person.
nurse. I mean, I can't even stand to see someone get a shot. I mean, and so I'm laying there going, this is such a big mistake. I mean, this is, on the airplane, when you go on an airplane
Yeah.
and they make the announcement, if you're in an exit seat and you're unwilling, unable, raise your hand, we'll move you. I mean, I laid in the bed for 2 days raising my hand
Oh my
going,
gosh.
unwilling, unable, unwilling, unable,
Yeah.
unable.
And so that put you to a place, you said this word a minute ago, it felt hopeless.
Yeah, I did not feel up to the task. I didn't want to do that task. I mean, I had both of those things.
Yeah, and yet here you are in the hospital, and this child has been born.
And he's in the intensive care. Jim's home with the kids, and I was sleeping, and I woke up at 2 a.m. And when people describe that they feel like they have an elephant on their chest, I experienced that. It was an oppression, just weighing on my chest I couldn't even describe. I mean, Tim, I didn't know how I was going to live the years with my son. I didn't know how I was going to take my next breath. I mean, I really didn't. And so the other thing you have to know about me is I don't like to fall apart in front of people. I don't like to cry.
So I know it seems like
I don't
so
like to cry.
cruel of me to tease you in the middle of this story, but that is so funny. So you're at 2 a.m., you've just had a baby.
And I'm about to fall apart. And what I'm
But you
worried
can't
about.
do it. No one.
Yeah. So what I'm worried about is what that's going to look like if someone walks in the room.
Because if your mascara is running.
Yeah, or I look like I'm out of control.
I'm sorry.
And
keep
even though
going.
I
Yeah.
knew I couldn't handle it, I didn't want to look like I knew I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
So
hear you.
it's all about. We'll talk Enneagram another time.
There you go.
Anyway.
So in that moment.
So in that moment, I did manage to get off the bed,
Yeah.
and I went into the bathroom, locked myself in my hospital bathroom, fell on that cold tile floor, and wept for I don't know how long. In fact, I would say I probably wailed, and just from the depths of my soul, just wept. I just knew I wasn't up for the task that God was asking me to do. And I finally, I don't know how long I was there, but I gathered myself and I managed to pray. And I said, okay, I will do this, but I need your peace. And actually, as I started praying, I started instinctively thanking God. And I started understanding about being grateful in the midst of writing the headlines maybe.
Yeah, wow.
Thank you for this baby. Thank you for my husband. Thank you for my other 3 children that I don't even know what their lives are going to look like. I believe you still have a plan. I'm going to choose to believe you still have a plan. And so I got myself up off that cold tile floor, out the door, down the hall to the NICU, and I just held him for the rest of the night. And just said, listen, buddy, I'm sure my heart's going to explode a million times on this new journey we're on, but I'm going to do it. We're going to do it, you and I, and your dad and your siblings, and God's going to see us through it. And he has.
Wow.
It has not been easy. We're 26 years into it now.
Well, I was going to say 26 years, and
Yeah.
and in some ways the situation still seems hopeless.
Yeah. Yeah, and here's what I learned. I learned that the situation can seem or be hopeless, but you can have hope.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense. You can have a peaceful heart in hopeless circumstances.
Yeah, it only makes sense because I know it's true.
Right.
And
right.
it's been
we
true
live
for
it.
you.
And I've been back on cold tile floors, so to speak. And I go back to him every time and go, I do not know how I'm going to put my feet on the floor.
So what I love is that you rewrote the headlines of that moment,
Yeah.
because the headline
Right.
could have been helpless mom,
Despair.
you know,
Hopeless, yeah.
But instead it was on a cold tiled floor. Mom finds peace.
Right.
Right. God gives you peace.
Right. And I think we have pictures of him.
Yeah.
This is our
Yeah,
Michael.
I
This is
love
our
these
Michael.
pictures.
But okay. Son smiles after getting a really cool haircut, and he knows it looks cool.
That's awesome.
Son gets to go to Buffalo Wild Wings with his dad and could not be happier.
That picture of Michael with your husband Jim is like my favorite, because
Yeah.
they're so enjoying each other in that moment.
Right.
And so you found peace, you found hope, you found
Right.
joy.
Right. How about this one? Adult child who will never wreck a car. He'll never wreck a car.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah.
But we come and go from that place of, he was in the hospital for 9 months in Baltimore, and that whole journey of having to put him into someone else's care.
Yeah.
And I talked more about that when we talked before. But to choose hope, to choose to see the good, to know that even though Michael has suffered, I know that Michael has experienced love.
Yeah.
Because his family adores him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
And you can have hope when it is hopeless. And Jim and I have experienced times when the thing we feared the most happened. Those moments have come, like, this is the thing that can't happen, and it does. And even those moments, God walks you through it.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, that's why I wanted you to tell this
Yeah.
story, and thank you for helping us all understand what it looks like to live out that hope that comes from Jeremiah 29. This
Right.
idea of, listen, the situation is bleak. It's not going to be what you want it to be, and it's
Right.
going to be far worse, really.
Right.
But
Right.
trust me, In me, you'll find peace. And this isn't the end of the story.
That's right.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I want to, if I can, thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that. I want to
yeah.
turn the corner and share with you guys some of the stories that you all shared with us in the comments and through the app. So these are just, I mean, you guys shared so many. A key was lost in the rocks of the ocean and it was washed up right next to me. How about that?
Wow.
That's the hopeless situation. Someone said, walking me through a painful divorce. When my husband was searching for a new job where he could be home nights and weekends, God showed up in a big way, and he has an incredible job where he gets to be home in time for dinner. That's great. Another person said, God came through for me after my husband died from colon cancer. But God showed up in that seemingly hopeless situation. This spring, when our family was suddenly faced with getting our parents into a senior living facility. When my wife and I split up after we had declared bankruptcy, God gave me the strength to come back and recover my life. My doctor told me that there's not a lot of hope with my disease. Jesus is reminding me that he is my hope. Guys, these stories are amazing. They're so profound. And they're examples of how God writes his story in the midst of our circumstances. And so when it feels hopeless, God says to us, yeah, this is not going to be perfect for you right now. This is going to be difficult, but plant gardens, build families, work and pray for the peace and welfare of this city, and I will continue to write you into this story of hope, and I will get the last word. Now, thinking about Jeremiah 29 and all of this reminds me of another verse that is so famous, only this one's in the New Testament. You guys know this verse, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So encouraging, and we put that out there when we think, you know, we're going to go climb a mountain, or we're going to go charge a hill, or we're going to go do some great thing. Do you know where Paul was when he wrote those words? In prison. And he was writing to a church that was being persecuted and martyred for their faith. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So this is the story that God is writing each of us into. And as you continue to go through this week, take heart, have courage, have hope, live with hope, work for the good of the city, and trust him as he continues to write your life into the big, big story. This is where you belong. In fact, we'll talk about that more this coming weekend. But for now, that's the end of the midweek. Thank you for joining us. God bless you, and we'll see you this weekend.